With Black Friday winding down, now is the best time to remind you once more that optional uniforms are still a really good pickup if you have some leftover crystals and you're not sure what to do with them. Now, when you talk about optional uniforms, however, people really get into the nitty-gritty and they end up suggesting to you oftentimes uniforms that are not really good anymore. So I actually went through hundreds of uniforms. I went through almost every single page of uniforms available, and I looked at all of the uniforms that they were optionals for. Shout out to Thanos vibes.money for that information. And I curated the 15 best optional uniforms in my opinion. Now, these optional uniforms, as you'll see, they're not impressive necessarily in the quantity of uniforms that they represent, but they are representative of good uniforms, and also they have good quality uniforms that they are optionals for. Now, what do I mean by an optional uniform? Well, if you go to any uniform and you go over to the list and then you go over to the options, these uniforms, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man Black and Gold, Magneto House of X, Crescent Light Sirius, and Thanos Obsidian King, these are the optional uniforms. And you'll find that some uniforms, like let's say Magneto House of X, this is an optional uniform that's popular. That has a lot of quantity. It appears very frequently, repeatedly in other characters' optionals. I mean, it's right here in Cable's new Heart of Darkness uniform. However, it's not a good uniform. It's not a good uniform because it's old, right? Magneto has a better uniform. Yes, it's seasonal, but this one's just bad. So I wanted to strike a balance between uniforms that were not only available as optionals for very good characters, but also that were pretty good uniforms in and of themselves. And that's why my list is so short. It's just the top 15. So I want to make that clear at the beginning of the video. So let's just jump right into the list with number 15. We have Wasps, Ant-Man, and Quantumania. So this is the newest uniform for Wasp. This is a good uniform for her because it enhances her passives and it continues to make incremental changes to her offensive ability. Right now, it's only available as an option for Ghost Rider Rage Returned, but it is one of the best options, right? The rare option and the mythic option are the best because they give you access to very good offensive and defensive stats. The third option, the heroic option, is also very good because it gives you access to secondary stats like besides HP, like skill cooldown and ignore defense. But yeah, Wasp is number 15. Next up, we actually have Ant-Man, believe it or not, from also the same uniform update, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Right now, this uniform is only an option for Strife, but Strife is a very powerful tier 3. Like Wasp, he has this team debuff. Whenever Strife gets a tier 4, I'm sure he'll be among the best villains for PvP, and he'll definitely make a huge impact there. And so, although Ant-Man's uniform was not as well received as it should have been, although it's not as good as it should have been because of Miles, because of Spider-Man, I still think this is an interesting pickup because you have the duality of a potential tier 4 and also a very strong tier 3 that you're providing optionals for. I didn't rank this one as number 14 because I want to make it clear for the rest of the list. These are not ranked in order from best to worst or worst to best. These are just the 15 that I curated that stood out to me. You're going to continue to see a pattern here with the next one, Spider-Man, back to basics. It's only an optional for one uniform right now, but it's an optional for Sin Rage Returned, and it's also the heroic option. Now, Sin is more of a support than an actual damage dealer, so uniform optionals are not as valuable for support characters, but I did want to include this one so that we can talk about that briefly. In general, support characters, White Fox, Nick Fury, Morgan Le Fay, etc., unless they're playing a bigger role on your roster, you're using them as a damage dealer, you're using them in PvP, then they don't really need a big build. They don't really need a full build, and that also includes optionals. Now, again, like Ant-Man, Spider-Man just represents a good tier 4, actually a great tier 4, better than Ant-Man. So the possibility that you buy this uniform just because you like Spider-Man or you want to build Spider-Man, and then you just get the secondary benefit of having good optionals for other uniforms that are also meta, is just a bonus. Surprise, surprise, another optional with just one that's being featured here is Shadow Shell, Moon Temple Defenders. Now, she represents the mythic option for Odin. So yeah, this is sort of a 2-for-1 in my opinion. If you've already tier 4'd Odin and you didn't pay any attention to Shadow Shell at all, you can pick up this uniform to give Odin his mythic option, which is really nice because it gives him that extra energy attack or all attack. And then you also get a competent level 80 speed character. And the nice thing about Shadow Shell, unlike Ant-Man, is she can be built for PvE or PvP. Carnage probably represents one of the most valuable optional uniforms these days. And so I would consider, if you have a lot of these characters, or you're intending on building them, like if you bought Summer Luna, if you bought Captain Marvel, if you're going to tier 4 Miles Morales, I would strongly consider buying Carnage's uniform, because it's an optional for all of these, and it's a very good optional for 2 of them, right? It's a top tier optional for Luna and Captain Marvel, and then it's a pretty good option for Squirrel Girl and Miles Morales. And so normally I would say, only buy Carnage's uniform if you have his artifact and you're going to build him for PvP. But I would say, you know what? Consider buying it as an optional, because it's actually a really good optional. The second non-tier 4 optional uniform on this list is actually Blade. And I was shocked when I saw this, but yeah, Blade is an optional uniform for Jean, Gamora, and Luna. So 2 out of the 3 uniforms that Blade is supporting are mega meta. That's probably because this uniform, Vampire Slayer, didn't really sell well, which is disappointing, because I think Blade is a super cool and underrated character, and he should be right there with the likes of Black Panther and Moon Knight. But unfortunately, the devs don't feel the same way. Maybe they're waiting for Mahershala Ali's movie. Who knows? But for the time being, at least, you can get some value out of Blade by considering this uniform. Kate Bishop is another non-tier 4 that represents a very strong optional uniform value, featuring Sharon Rogers' rare option and Spider-Man's advance. So you got 2 tier 4s in there, and then you have the mythic option for Malekith and Agent Venom. While they're not as strong as tier 4s, they're still solid characters. And then Agent Venom, of course, has additional value as an insane support for symbiote characters. So you do have quite a bit going on here that Kate Bishop can bring more value to. A bit of a teaser earlier in the video, but Thanos' Obsidian King uniform features not 1 but 2 tier 4 character supports, and it features a meta tier 3 in Green Goblin. So you have a lot of value packed into one uniform here. I mean, just in the ABX ABL meta here, Green Goblin and Cable are both meta. So if you really want to push your scores, you're absolutely going to have to consider picking up this uniform, because it's going to give both Cable and Green Goblin that extra 600 base energy attack that they need to really scale their stats. Blue Dragon, an excellent option for sort of a dual PvE, PvP threat, and she's excellent for some World Boss Legend restrictions. And then Cyclops is just a solid support character that gets a bit more tanky. So yeah, this is a very good optional. Unfortunately, it's not Thanos' best uniform, but it is still valuable in this way. Like Thanos, this Requiem uniform for Gamora is not her most recent and not her best, but as you can see here, not 1, not 2, but 3 tier 4s that it represents optional supports for. So this is mega value. Of course, we wish that the optionals themselves were either the rare or the mythic tiers for Thor and Shadow Shell, but the advanced tier is still pretty good. You do have the best tier for Miles, and then you also have Morgan Le Fay as extra bonus options. Emma Frost Hellfire Gala is the next optional uniform beast, and right now there's so many optional uniforms that she supports, you can only see her goofy hat. But yes, this is the uniform I'm talking about. And if you take a look here, she features not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 optional uniforms. Now, I know we have 2 there that have been replaced already, right? Shuri's Black Panther got replaced with the Shuri Black Panther one. And then Miles Morales Anniversary got replaced with Miles Morales Across the Spider-Verse. But we still have 1, 2, 3 top tier meta PvE tier 4 uniforms. You have Gamora's GOG3, you have Spider-Gwen's Across the Spider-Verse, and you have Thor Love and Thunder. So this is a fantastic optional uniform. I know it's very expensive to build because you have to buy the uniform, and then her bios are very difficult to get because they cost crystals. But if you have Gamora, Thor, Spider-Gwen tier 4, or multiple of these characters tier 4, then it's a no-brainer that you want to build this for its optional value. Although a dated uniform by today's standards compared to Back to Basics Spider-Man No Way Home, the integrated suit with the most, entertaining idle animation we've ever seen, does feature 2 tier 4s, one who is meta right now in Ghost Rider, and then a meta tier 3 in Green Goblin. So this represents a ton of value here, and it also has Morgan Le Fay to boot. When you see the bear, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Crescent's most recent uniform, Light Serious Armor, who unfortunately didn't get an upgrade this year, along with Sharon and along with Luna, who did get uniforms in tier 3s. Crescent represents a very good optional uniform. You have Thanos Obsidian King, not very good, but then you have Moon Knight, you have Carnage, you have Professor X, and you have Cable. So that is 4 tier 4s back to back to back to back. This might be the most valuable optional uniform in the game right now. You have the rare uniform option for Moon Knight, which is amazing, the mythic for Carnage, which is amazing, and then to a lesser degree, you have the advanced and legendary options for those 2 mutants. But this still represents tons of value because it's hitting multiple different tier 4s, and it's actually hitting on 3 different categories, right? You have combat hero, combat villain, and then also blast hero male. So very, very strong optional uniform for a very subpar character. And the only tier 2 on this list, Baron Zemo, reprises his role as one of the best optional uniforms. He was also featured on last year's list. Take a look here. We got Heimdall, Electro, not so good, but then you got Storm. It ramps with the Paywall Storm uniform, the Summer Vibes uniform. Then you get Black Bolt, so that's 2 tier 4s back to back who are both seasonal. Then you get Ant-Man's mythic option. That's 3 optionals back to back to back that are tier 4. And then you get Loki's heroic. So 4 tier 4s back to back to back to back, 3 of which are meta. Very, very strong optional uniform represented here with Baron Zemo. You have the heroic option for Loki, which is very good, the mythic options for Ant-Man and Storm, which are very good, and then the rare option for Black Bolt, which is also very good. They're really trying to push this uniform as a giga value optional, and it shows. Cyclops Phoenix 5, while dated compared to his newest uniform, does turn him into a villain, so it is still technically very valuable as an ABX support because we don't have a lot of blast villain supports right now besides Mysterio. However, it's also a really popular optional uniform. I wouldn't say it's like a very good in terms of quality optional uniform, because as you can see, a lot of these uniforms at the beginning here are outdated: Crossbone, Silver Surfer, Old Odin, and Medusa. But if you scroll down, you'll see that it's actually starting to pick up value at the end with Adam Warlock's heroic option and Loki's advanced option. Now, since it's already an optional for, what is this, 8 uniforms, I don't actually think they'll add any more. I think 8 or 9 is really the cutoff for uniforms in terms of being optionals, being featured as optionals. But hey, these are still 2 very meta characters in Adam Warlock and Loki, and as we discussed, Cyclops Phoenix 5 has its own ABX value as a support, so it's kind of a no-brainer. And then last but not least, we actually feature a character twice with 2 different uniforms. We have Gamora GOG3. Now, I know that this is just one uniform that it appears as an optional for. It's a very new uniform, but it started off really strong, featured as the mythic option for Loki, so I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to add super powerful and valuable optionals to this list, but it's something we'll have to keep an eye on. So hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of my optional uniform guide and sort of tier list and sort of ranking, top 15. Let me know if there's any that you think I missed. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.